Very good morning. So this morning I was listening to some of the dignitaries on the stage, and I fondly recall one of the quotes by Andrew Kapati. So this gentleman was the founding head of Tesla's AI. That means one of the forefronters in terms of AI. So around 6 months ago, he said, very interestingly, a new phenomenon has hit the world. So the phenomenon is this. Until now, until the last 2-3 years, if any major innovation or technology comes to the market, it is first adopted by a government, then the corporates will take over, and finally it takes many decades or years to come to the normal citizen, common people. And for the first time in the history, a technology has come in such a way that the adoption first started with a normal common man. Corporates are still figuring out how to do this. And you know what is happening with governments. I don't need to tell it to you. But the beauty is, this is really good for us. Why? Because the end user is already trained on using the technology. You don't need to tell them what to do, how to do, and why to do this. All that you need to now do is enable them to get there. So with this context, we are going to talk about the shift from e-governance to I-governance, and our learnings from the field, both Google and Paradigm together while we work with different governments. What are our learnings? And what is that we decided that we have to create together that helps the entire government to do something called a public sector LLM. So this is going to be the next 10 to 15 minutes of my talk. So now, let's begin with understanding the e-governance aspect of it. As you're all aware, what is e-governance, but I'll try to conclude it in 2-3 points. It is a system that has given people access. This morning, from all the gentlemen in the morning, I realized very fondly one common essence of it. To the common people, it has created something called access. Yeah. But the beauty is, this has really created solid impact, great GDP in the country. However, these systems could not understand people yet. So there are limitations for this system. What are these limitations from the e-governance standpoint? Number one, raising citizen expectations. Today, an average citizen orders 2 to 3 orders on Swiggy, Blinkit, or Zepto. So their expectation is if I click a button, things should come to me in 10 minutes. And the same citizens are using or availing the services of governments where it sometimes might take 2-3 weeks. So these expectations have to be catered. That's a major challenge that we are all looking at. And especially as the new generation come to the force, this is going to be much more tougher for us to manage. Then the second and most important aspect for us is the information overload, because the data is coming. As we are talking in the morning, the GEL Commission has brought in so many sensors, giving us so much of information, weather data, IMD data, but who is going to read all of this data? Who is going to make sense of this data? Who is going to give you an insight of what to do next? So these are the top challenges that we see, and most importantly, these systems of e-governance, while it has given us access, it still do not understand people. It do not understand the angle of empathy. That means someone has to manually do it again. So these are the fundamental challenges that we saw in the e-governance world. So what is the solution for this? And that's where the new coined term called intelligent governance, I-governance, comes into picture. So in the I-governance world, there are 3 important aspects that one should look at. Number one is create a system that understands people, then a system that also reasons, and a system that acts. These are very, very, very important. Understanding, reasoning, and acting. That's the most important part. And this will enable us to make those decisions very easily, create those automated workflows, and give that enablement to the citizens that really adds value. So this is all theory. I know there's so much theory going on. Now let's look at the real practical world. So we took this challenge of creating the I-governance solutions almost 6 months ago, and I'll show you some of the important results that have come out in different governments and are coming up in the next 2-3 months. So let's start with the first use case. When Google went to work with Andhra Pradesh government, we partnered with Google to deploy a particular solution called Search for the government websites. So there were close to 800 websites, out of which 300 to 400 do not even function anymore. No one knows where the code exists and who the login ID is. And there are these 400 to 450 websites where the real information is. However, it is very difficult for a normal citizen to understand where the relevant information is for them to go and file a form or fill something else. So we said, why don't we create a system which is as similar as Google that everyone uses? A single search bar where you just go search, it will give you everything that you need to understand, pull information from all the websites, and give you the links and any latest news from the internet that they can look at. So I'll show you that in live demo now. So this is a functioning website, by the way. You can see the URL search.ap.gov.in. We can get in. Let's look at some of those templated versions to begin with. I want to pay my water bill or major skill development programs. That's it. It goes to all the websites first, looks for the relevant information, pulls that out, gives you the most relevant aspects of what you need to look for. Parallelly, on the other side, it creates that real link where the information is picked from. Those reference links are established there. And any relevant articles published on internet are also extracted and given to you. So this is what I'm talking about, intelligent governance. A search bar that understands what citizen is looking for and really gives them with context. And also there is a lot of aspects in terms of guardrails also for this. Especially because we don't need to get any wrong links from a scammer with all the digital scams going on these days. So this is one example of what we did in the last 3 to 4 months with Google and Andhra Pradesh government. Then we also started working with many other officers in the government. And one of the problem statements that came out to us very commonly was the geos being translated to different local languages, especially for a state like Assam, where you have to translate into 2-3 different languages. It's going to be really tough. Now, what is the tough part about it? One, a section officer drafts the geo, but someone has to approve it. It is, let's say, approved in English. Now it has to go to a translation department, get those 2 versions, someone has to review it, approve it, go back again, 2-3 days, sometimes even a week's time when there is a lot of work pending. What if, and when we talk to these translation departments, they were already using Google Translate, they were already using Google Geminis and etc., but they are not sure about the security aspect of it. They're not sure about the information. Sometimes even 1 minute ahead of information coming out is very dangerous for certain geos. So how do we ensure this is taken care? So again, we collaborated with Google. We took some of the solutions. We also looked at Bhashini. We also looked at IIT Madras's Indic Trans. So we created a common solution and we let government take a decision whether a particular model is working for them or not. Where they want to go for Google in cloud or where they want to run it locally using Bhashini or Indic Trans, which is from IIT Madras. So that solutions demo is being tested as we speak in Andhra Pradesh. So this is how the demo looks like. For example, I'm uploading a geo here. The first extract is on the left. There are 4 different engines we have created. Each engine is using different LLMs and different NMTs. And they're getting done. If you are still translating. So this is how the entire draft is generated. Now, for example, I do not like this word, or I want to replace it with a new glossary that I want to regularly use later. I can just embed in that through the feedback here, and the system will take it into the new glossary dictionary. And similarly, we're also enabling this. Feedback is also very important in the development stages. So we're also enabling it with by the way, tables. Look at how well it has also done the tables and everything else. And the structural feedback is also taken in to understand what is working, what is not working with a particular model, so that we can benchmark it and give it back to people so that they know what to use when. And that really gives them an advantage. And like this, there were many problems. In fact, one I will talk about, but I'll go back to the presentation. Rules and amendments. So this was a problem statement given to us by a senior IAS officer. He said, Jignesh, there are so many rules that were created many years ago. 30 years ago, 40 years ago, sometimes even 50 years ago. The problem is now, over years, all these rules were amended multiple times. Sometimes an amendment to the amendment to the amendment. And unfortunately, every time these amendments happen, the original rule book is not updated. So it goes like this. There's a 2-page document of rule book and 30, 40, sometimes 200 pages of amendments only. Now, a court is trying to trial a case of a particular amendment issue, let's say in 2006. Now, court wants a document which is updated as of 2006. So someone has to manually go through this entire process. And if someone misses it in somewhere in between, it opens up loopholes for the system. So this is where the solution of using agentic systems was also leveraged to create an automated system that updates the rules every time an amendment comes to market and takes an approval from the authority that this is the right version of it. Typically, there are only 3 things that happens there: an addition, a subtraction, or a replacement. So agents will do this job for us and move it forward. So these are some of many use cases that we have been solving over the last 3 to 4 months working with different governments. Now, what did we learn from all of this? And that's the crux for today's session. Well, we worked with so many governments. One important aspect that we realized was everyone is getting these tools, but they're not knowing how to use it. And they're not getting the tools in such a way that they can use it right away out of the box. And most importantly, one common insight that came in everywhere is every government wanted to solve the same kind of problem with a similar kind of solution, but they're doing it themselves again and again from scratch. They're all trying to reinvent the wheel again and again. So what we need, the important learning for us was, we need to stop building for every state, and we need to create a single layer that every state can pick and start using. And that's where the idea for the Agentic AI system came for us. We call it the Unified Agentic Platform. So we're working with Google, Paradigm, and multiple other governments to create the system called the Unified Agentic System. What is the system all about? So primarily, there are data sources. Now, these sources can come from anywhere. But what do we need to do for these data sources? We need to have those common connectors, integratable connectors. So those connectors are what we are creating to ingest data from any of these sources from the market. Then the second aspect is the studio in itself. So studio could be multiple aspects. It could be a simple NMT translation model or a simple ML model, or it could be a complex LLM, or it could be a group of agents. So there are so many components to it. It could be a computer vision model. So there's so many things that can we bring them together, which can be leveraged for a particular use cases. And most importantly, create those SOPs, which are leveraged. For example, this amendments and rule book. It's a standard process that we want to adhere. So can you bring those workflows and SOPs structured into the system and already create these agents, which you can just pick and start using. For example, a translation agent. So that's the agentic factory. And finally, actions that come in the form of what you saw in search.government website. So this is what we are building now. And if you are interested in working with us on figuring out something like this, I'm available over the next 2 days. Happy to talk to you and discuss more on this. Thank you very much.